And I'm going to go to Connor, and I also just want to cover it. I know we're getting towards the end of the time, but I do want to just talk really briefly about the decision-making strategy because it is so different. And it's something that often people have questions about, what is it like waiting? So waiting a 28-day period. So sort of the process for the evaluator decision-making strategy is to wait, to reflect, and to discuss, right? So it's about waiting for an invitation or initiation from others, and then waiting and reflecting and discussing for about a month. And again, it's waiting and reflecting and just asking and speaking about that decision over time so that you can feel your truth. And then, as I understand it, there's suddenly a deep feeling of this sudden knowing within. And then from there, deciding or not and taking action. And so one of the reasons why there is this 28-day cycle, and Connor, I have your chart here as well, is it also follows the moon cycle as well. And I just put this just very, very simple. If we take a look at the wheel, it moves in a counterclockwise way, and where the moon or the driving force happens to be is in the 26th. So that's where, in a sense, for Connor, where the cycle starts. And then every month, the moon goes through each one of these traits. And you can see this is what Connor's chart looks like at the beginning of class today. So even though she's an evaluator, you can see that there's a lot of definition here. And the moon currently, the driving force, the moon currently happens to be in trait number 3. So we can see it here. And this also defines, we can see what is blue is actually the transit, and what is green is what's actually the traits that are defined within Connor's design. So this is also, we were talking about what makes you unique as well. This is part of where the uniqueness comes into play, because as not only the moon, but all the other planets, transit, there's different definition that shows up at different times depending on what your design is, which then can lead to very, very different experiences. So this is why the evaluator decision-making strategy is a 28-day cycle. And this gives them an opportunity throughout the month to feel what is consistent and what is not. And so since I have your chart here, Connor, I would love for you to say just a little bit about sort of the decision-making strategy. And then if you want to tie in any of the others or answers to any of the other questions as we've been going through them, would love to hear that as well.
Thank you, Karen. I think if you were to enter into a really honest conversation with us about the moon cycle, we would have a very different take on it. And I only say that from our discussions, and it's something we've been looking at together. And I would say overall, what our decision-making strategy isn't necessarily just about the moon cycle. It's about waiting for a clarity and a knowing. And depending on the largesse of the decision, we may know in the moments, and we may have to run what we'd call 4 moon cycles. There is a knowing, and for us, it's not just about the moon, and it's just not about a 28-day cycle. What may be most accurate is our discussing things with other people, not to get their advice telling us what to do, but to process through for ourselves, and to get a read on things, and then to continue to trust our own decision. And an example of that is I've been tracking the threads and the confluence of where we are now for a long time, and that's I have the 61-4, which is research, and that's played out throughout my life. I'm a history buff. for tracking purposes. It's not for everyone, but it's how I can communicate with different people. And so I've been tracking, as an example, financial trends. And so there's been knowledge of the financial aspect of what we're going through today for quite a while. Not everyone has seen it. Not even all financial people have seen it. But last fall, talking with people, I was encouraged to make some decisions last fall, and of course I recognized it was fear-based from people I was talking to. So over time, over the next few months, I began to just talk to different people about their take, their opinions, their views. And over time, I used it as a synthesis, sort of as external knowledge, opinions, and then I simmered it within myself, and then I made a decision. I couldn't explain the rationale, as many of us have said. That part of us really can't be known, and I'm not even sure I could explain it. But I made a couple of financial decisions, and I had someone come back to me 3 days later and say, "How did you know to do that?" And I didn't know how to explain it. But it has to do with how we process information, and relative to what's been said already, the time we're in now, it's been obvious. It's been coming a long time. It's been obvious, and I would say probably more for evaluator reflectors, and of course not all of us are awake. And not all of us are awake at different times of our life, or we're awake to different things, and so I concur with what everyone has said, that we are on this monumental threshold that I've been feeling in my sensory awareness, especially living in the wilderness so long. The example I use is, when a tsunami's coming, the animals are up in the hills, and it's only humans that are down on the beach drinking pina coladas and saying, "Wow, I got the beach all to myself. I'm in my private resort." And so the confluence we're in has been coming for a long time. And as Emma was saying earlier, how can people not see what we see? I and many of us have tried to point the way or give information out, and it hasn't always been received well. And so some of the folks I'm working with now, we're just calling this the fear pandemic. Because the health and the virus cancels out the financial crash, and the financial crash cancels out the virus crash, and how to weave it together. And it's the fear that's driving all of us, and the collective. At a deeper level, what I would say, and it ties in with design, and it's been really helpful for me in framing it for myself and talking to people, when I'm asked about it, because I also am very calm. I live in gratitude. That's first thing before my feet hit the ground. I just give thanks for another day, for the calm I have, for the journey I'm on, for what I'm here to contribute. And that is, we're moving from this cross of planning into the sleeping phoenix, and there's not time to explain that. But overall, for the last 400 years, humanity, through innovation and creation and understanding cosmic principles, natural world principles like electricity, we have developed a way of life that everyone, most everyone, at least in the Western world, has lived at the benefit of it, running water, electricity, all of that. And so we've created this catch-all system that benefits the whole. And part of the advantage of that is, the tribal consciousness, that one for all and all for one. However, as part of that, we also have become lazy from the standpoint that we've let other people sort of do the work, and we like to ride on the wings of other people. And so there's been an assumption that the systems in place are always going to be there. And to me, just because of my love of the natural world, there's an assumption of provision that's there, that's not built on us as part of the web of life. And so most humans at this point really are very disconnected to the natural world. And we don't know where our food comes from. And not only do we not know where our food comes from, but we don't know the processes. We don't know the people who are doing the work of that. We take it for granted. And, we're being sucked down this tube of technology with no respect of the consequence of it, and the impact on biological life. And I would venture to say that, and I heard someone, pointed out in one of the, I don't tag in with lots of groups, but I do have deeper discussions. And that is, when you go out and venture out into the world and there's not a lot of human activity, that is what the world would be like were there fewer of us. And so to me, the threshold we're on isn't about, well, let's, eliminate most of the people in the world. It's an invitation for us to re-enter into the world of human activity from a very, very different consciousness. And it has to be built on respect of self and, respect of everything else. The term I use for it in my work is the learning of self-governance. And to understand that true democracy cannot exist without self-governance. And why is that? It's because if we have not learned how to govern our own life in a really good way, where we contribute benefit and justice and care, and you've heard all of us speak to that, what that would be for us. We don't recognize who among us has the capacity to lead at a larger level. Because we don't even see it in ourselves, and we haven't made a commitment to live a benevolent, kind, nourishing life that benefits ourselves and others. So it is this threshold of consciousness, and I venture to say also that the breakdown of the systems has just started. And so the last thing in this self-governance to me is learning preparedness. And of course, wilderness living and living in national parks and emergency rescue and I'm not an expert in all of that, but I have learned preparedness. So what does that mean? And we all need to move into that. That's part of this consciousness of being accountable for ourselves, not relying on everybody else to bail us out. And so that what does our own oxygen mask look like first so that we could help others? Well, have your home ready with some extra food and flashlights, that whole conversation. But it means that if we take care of ourselves, when a hurricane comes through or whatever it is, we're in a huge hurricane right now globally, then we can stay calm because we have a capacity in ourselves to radiate that out and to calm people down, and to we then have gifts we can give that can benefit others. I've been taking food to elders, people in their 80s who don't have a lot and live remotely, and there are so many ways we can contribute to the times, and that can only come out if we're confident and calm and letting things unfold.
Yeah. Beautifully said, Connor. And I like what you said about this self-governance. That's really what following your decision-making strategy is all about. Following what's true to you, and everything it falls into place, and you see what you're meant to see. You do what you're meant to do. You have the opportunities that you're meant to have. And so it really is, trusting your decision-making strategy, and it will keep you safe.